A reckoning inside a crime scene inside the nation's capital, which was famously criminally ransacked by Donald Trump's fans after he summoned them. This is the seat of government and democracy, which then outgoing President Trump tried to overthrow. And this is the first time the special counsel who famously indicted Donald Trump twice, Jack Smith, gave public testimony under oath about his case. And Jack Smith's headline was clear: Donald Trump belongs in prison. Donald Trump would have been convicted had, in Smith's view, the wheels of justice been allowed to move forward. Now that is his view. A fair reporting of this also includes other views, and members of both parties, of course, were represented in the questioning. But they are questioning an individual who has high credibility, who's prosecuted people in the public corruption unit in both parties, and who brought this case with mountains of evidence. So what he said today for the first time under oath in public matters. And he said Trump is guilty of serious crimes against our democracy, and that he had the goods, the evidence, the receipts to prove it. And what is different today, and we're going to show you not only what Smith said, but a lot of the supporting material right now. I've got some very special guests standing by from the top of the DOJ. But what we're going to show you right now is both some of what Smith said, so you're caught up on the highlights. But if you watch part of this hearing today, we're going to show you more than just what he said. We're going to give it to you in the context of the overwhelming evidence. Because here's the thing, every defendant is legally presumed innocent in our system, and that includes former defendant Donald Trump. But not every case is this strong with this much evidence that occurred in real time. Trump tried to overturn the election he lost, and he was caught red-handed with volumes and volumes, piles and piles of classified documents which he had every right to review while he was president and no right to steal when his citizen era began. And so here's where we begin tonight with Jack Smith. President Trump engaged in criminal activity. Donald Trump suggested that one witness should be put to death. This is a Republican, mind you, who called it a little bit embarrassing. I felt confident in pursuing the case. I will not be intimidated. The Republicans have called this a hearing. We had proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Be careful what you wish for. We were ready, willing, and able to go to trial. He's always sort of been very down the clear's throat, middle, and just about the facts. It was an attack on the structure of our democracy. No one should be above the law in this country. No one should be above the law. Smith was sober to the point of dry. He was fair to the point of sometimes even possibly boring for those who watched all 5+ hours of this. And he was serious in a forum that at times was not. Indeed, Republicans were of two minds about this formidable public servant because remember there was a private deposition they held, and they released that kind of under the cover of darkness over the holidays. Smith was the one who said, "Yes, I can appear in private or public." But bring it on. Former DOJ counsel appears today amidst this enemies list, which Trump has made it clear he wants to add Smith to. These are not just named opponents or targets, but people that have already been basically subjected to the DOJ's corrupt use of subpoenas and indictments, charges, probes. Do you believe that President Trump's Department of Justice will find some way to indict you? I believe that they will do everything in their power to do that because they've been ordered to by the president. And Trump posted about his view that the hunter should be hunted, that he wants to return to more and more of these kind of revenge prosecutions. His current record, by the way, 0-14. Pam Bondi takes the enemies list as an order even though in a similar forum before Congress, she once claimed there would be no enemies list. Did your investigation find that Donald Trump attempted to manufacture fraudulent slates of presidential electors in 7 states that he lost? Yes. I just want to find 11,780 votes. Did he spread lies and conspiracies to his followers to make them believe that the election had been illegally rigged against him? Yes. They obviously were influencing a lot of people, members of the public. Did he pressure DOJ officials to stop the certification of the election? He did. And I recall toward the end saying, "What you're proposing is nothing less than the United States Justice Department meddling in the outcome of a presidential election." You don't understand, Mike. You can do this. I don't want to be your friend anymore if you don't do this. What you see there is the corroboration, including from Republican officials, from White House veterans, from people speaking under oath who did resist what Trump demanded, which was to stonewall what became his impeachment probe and later the Jan 6 investigation by Congress. And so again, I'm trying to tell you very clearly, We cover some hearings where somebody says a bunch of stuff, and that's all we have. We cover some legal proceedings where somebody says stuff, but some of it remains under seal. And that's true sometimes for good reasons in grand jury cases or in other areas where Trump has continued to hide material against the law like the Epstein probe. But this is not that case tonight. Jack Smith spoke under oath under the penalty of perjury and more in these tense times, and then referred to things that as we're continuing to show you happened and were corroborated by Trump's top aides and longtime Republican conservatives and Federalist Society members. Smith said it is that evidence, corroboration, and witnesses that meant he was confident he would win this case beyond a reasonable doubt. And if you remember, the two cases today, he testified most about Jan 6, but the two cases with felonies involved would lead typically to sentencing where the defendant would end up in prison for some time. Again, every defendant legally presumed innocent. These cases didn't go to trial. But remember, it was Trump's own supporters in the cases Smith was going to bring who would have become witnesses, who wanted him to win the election. I said, absolutely not. That's not how we do things in the United States. There's no legal authority to do that. What they were proposing, I thought, was nuts. Those are the voices of the insiders, the people who helped Trump all along the way, including on ideas that were controversial to say the least in the first term, but served his agenda. They just stopped at the point of ending our democracy as we know it, of trying to overthrow the incoming administration of President-elect Biden. And they failed, which is important to remember at a time like this where some feel we've gone through the looking glass in the second term, and Jack Smith is being openly attacked by the sitting president, and they are willing to indict their foes. We've seen, and yet that doesn't mean that insurrections work. And if they try it again, there are good reasons to think it would not work on a repeat. Jack Smith was, as I mentioned, under these rules, not going to get into the classified documents case. That's because, unlike some of the people at the DOJ right now, this former DOJ employee closely adheres to every court order in the rule of law. So, because there's a court order that limits that, he was extra careful to say he's not going to get into any of it. And I emphasize that because there are some people in government and law who would say, that's the court order, but I'm going to go up against it, or I'm going to try to get really close to the line, or I'm going to say things that aren't about what I know from the government side of that case. But in general about, for example, you could not violate a court order, but say that as a general matter, leaving classified documents all over the place that you stole is dangerous to the United States. You could say that without, of course, revealing any secret investigative material, but he's very careful. And we're going to talk about this tonight as well, the difference in the tactics because he's playing by the rules even as others break them. And for people who look at this as politics or blood sport, that can be frustrating. As a political matter, Democrats are often told to get tougher. And within the law and nonviolent available legal actions, they could get tougher. That's a political debate. But it is not the place of veterans of the Department of Justice or anyone who cares about the rule of law to say, if the other side's doing crime or elector fraud or lying under oath, then you got to hit back with that. And that certainly was not Jack Smith's approach today. Depends on whether that report is released and other matters in court. Smith made it clear what he sees at stake today. My belief is that if we do not hold the most powerful people in our society to the same standards of the rule of law, it can be catastrophic if we don't call people to account when they commit crimes in this context. It can endanger our election process. It can endanger election workers and ultimately our democracy. I told you Jack Smith is sober and careful. He didn't make a bunch of sweeping statements like that. The warning you just heard there, he made on the strength of the evidence he'd gathered, on the very credible witnesses who had worked for Trump up until the insurrection and sedition plot, and then told the truth he thinks under oath, many of them about what we're up against. And you heard it there. If we don't patrol this and we don't protect our democracy and rule of law, Americans are in danger. The actual counting and processing of the votes is in danger, and ultimately the democracy itself. There weren't any big fireworks coming from Jack Smith's side of the table today. That's on purpose. Wannabe performative internet fireworks. He is the antithesis of that. And yet if there were substantive fireworks, if I can be so bold as to make up that kind of term, the substance that came through was your democracy is at stake. As the Trump administration continues to target innocent civilians, documented immigrants, women, children, and now journalists. Well, instead of the worst, or the most dangerous of the most dangerous, as promised, well, in our featured clip of the day. As you're about to see, it's prompted one legendary activist, actress, and cultural icon to step in front of the microphone and let the world know just what she thinks today. Welcome to Occupied Democrats, and please hit that subscribe button if you're ready to feel the burn with Hanoi Jane. Nothing pulls my buttocks in quite like an all-out assault on democracy. Well, yes, that was film icon, fitness guru, and political activist extraordinaire Jane Fonda, who I might also mention is married to Ted Turner. This guy who I almost got into a fist fight with in Natty in Vegas many years ago. That's a story for another time. Ted is the former owner of CNN, the former employer of Don Lemon. Now, wait until you hear what, Jane has to say about what's going on in Trump's crusade against journalism. That is our featured story. It's coming up next. As you're about to see, she directly addresses this. I want to thank everybody for their support. It truly means the world to me. I have no idea what's going on because obviously I haven't seen anything. I have spent my entire career covering the news. I will not stop now. In fact, there is no more important time than right now, this very moment, for a free and independent media that shines a light on the truth and holds those in power accountable. Again, I will not stop now. I will not stop ever. Last night, the DOJ sent a team of federal agents to arrest me in the middle of the night for something that I've been doing for the last 30 years, and that is covering the news. The First Amendment of the Constitution protects that work for Don Lemon. He wasn't alone. Trump's Doge goons also targeted independent journalist Georgia Fort. Now, this is what she had to say. On the other side of this, the woman who risked it all to protest against the Vietnam War and has been an outspoken critic throughout her storied career, while she steps up once again in defiance of Trump's assault on journalism. I should be protected under the First Amendment, just like all of the journalists who I've been advocating for too. I've been advocating for mainstream media journalists who have been brutalized for months. Do we have a constitution? That is the pressing question that should be on the front of everyone's minds. And so to everybody who showed up today, thank you. Please continue to support the other people who are being charged. Obviously, because there's ongoing litigation, there is not much that I can say beyond what I'm saying now. But amplifying the truth, documenting what is happening in our community is not a crime. And the questions that were asked a few weeks ago on a Sunday morning by concerned community members. Hank Fonda's outspoken daughter, Jane. I've always want to say Hank Fonda. She's no stranger to controversy. As you're about to see in our feature clip, she picks right up where she left off in 1973. People, we should ask ourselves why. It is an orchestrated lie orchestrated by the Pentagon. Seems the more things change, the more they stay the same. Let's take you now to our featured story. It's a terrific clip from a long-standing voice of conscience in our country. For that. The Lifetime Achievement Award goes to Jane Fonda. I know Don Lemon. My husband created CNN, and I will fight for their right to speak, which is guaranteed in our Constitution. They arrested the wrong Don. Don Lemon is a professional journalist. He and his producer were doing their job, nothing more, nothing less. And he's been arrested. And they'll make up all kinds of defamatory things to say about him. That's what they're doing. This is, we need more, not less of that. Famous folks, regular folks, anyone setting an example for us to follow into the future, because sadly there is absolutely no going back to an aerobically conscious America. That was then and this is now. So please like us, share, and by all means and measure, take care. We're going to leave you with Senator Blumenthal's words that should echo with you all weekend. Please stay safe. The arrest of Don Lemon, charging him with doing his job as a journalist, that's no crime, ought to be terrifying to Americans. I am really frightened by the prospect of these police state tactics, turning the Department of Justice into the Department of Retribution. The statute that he's charged with violating, I've enforced as State Attorney General of Connecticut, and it was meant to protect women seeking access to reproductive clinics, physical interference, not the kind of journalist activity that involved Don Lemon and his colleagues also arrested independent journalists. Tonight, Washington is once again at the center of political chaos as explosive headlines and intense speculation spread across American media, all revolving around one name, Donald J. Trump. Reports, leaks, and unnamed sources have ignited a firestorm after claims emerged suggesting that the FBI has taken extraordinary steps involving the former and once again politically dominant president. While official confirmations remain carefully worded, the implications alone have shaken the political system to its core. Supporters call it a witch hunt. Critics call it long overdue accountability, and the nation is left asking one question. How did American politics reach this point? According to multiple media outlets, federal investigators have been accelerating inquiries connected to classified documents, alleged obstruction, and potential violations of federal law. The phrase FBI custody has appeared in headlines, social media posts, and breaking news banners, triggering confusion, panic, and celebration all at once. Legal experts are urging caution, reminding the public that detention, interview, and arrest are not interchangeable terms. But in today's hypercharged political climate, nuance rarely survives longer than a few minutes. Donald Trump, a figure who has defied political gravity for nearly a decade, has responded in characteristic fashion, denouncing the reports as fake news, accusing federal agencies of weaponization, and framing himself as the ultimate victim of a corrupt system. In statements released by his team, Trump insists that powerful forces are desperate to stop him because they fear his return to power. To his supporters, this narrative reinforces everything they already believe: that the system is rigged, the FBI is compromised, and Trump is being targeted for challenging the establishment. On the other side, Trump's critics argue that no individual, regardless of status or popularity, should be above the law. They point to years of invest. The symbolism of the FBI and a former president colliding in this way is unprecedented in modern American history. Even the suggestion of such an event sends shock waves through global markets, foreign capitals, and intelligence communities. Allies watch nervously, rivals watch closely, and authoritarian regimes quietly enjoy the spectacle of American instability broadcast in real time. What makes this moment even more volatile is timing. With elections looming and political divisions already at breaking point, any aggressive legal move risks igniting unrest. We have seen before how quickly rhetoric can turn into action. Federal agencies are well aware that every step they take will be dissected, misrepresented, and weaponized across cable news and social media within seconds. Behind closed doors, legal analysts say the real battle is not just about guilt or innocence, but about precedent. What happens when a former or sitting president becomes entangled with federal law enforcement? Does it strengthen democracy by proving equality under the law? Or does it permanently damage trust in institutions? There are no easy answers, only consequences. Meanwhile, the public remains trapped between headlines and reality. One outlet says arrest, another says voluntary cooperation. A third says imminent charges. In the age of clicks and algorithms, truth moves slower than outrage. And outrage once unleashed is nearly impossible to contain. Trump's political machine has already shifted into campaign mode. Using the controversy as fuel for fundraising and mobilization, emails, posts, and speeches frame the situation as a final battle between Trump and what he calls the deep state. This strategy has worked before, turning legal pressure into political momentum. Whether it will work again remains to be seen. What is clear is this: the story is no longer just about Donald Trump or the FBI. It is about the fragility of American institutions, the collapse of shared reality. Carefully worded, the implications alone have shaken the political system to its core. Supporters call it a witch hunt, critics call it long overdue accountability, and the nation is left asking one question: how did American politics reach this point? According to multiple media outlets, federal investigators have been accelerating inquiries connected to classified documents, alleged obstruction, and potential violations of federal law. The phrase FBI custody has appeared in headlines, social media posts, and breaking news banners, triggering confusion, panic, and celebration all at once. Legal experts are urging caution, reminding the public that detention, interview, and arrest are not interchangeable terms. But in today's hypercharged political climate, nuance rarely survives longer than a few minutes. Donald Trump, a figure who has defied political gravity for nearly a decade, has responded in characteristic fashion, denouncing the reports as fake news, accusing federal agencies of weaponization, and framing himself as the ultimate victim of a corrupt system. In statements released by his team, Trump insists that powerful forces are desperate to stop him because they fear his return to power. To his supporters, this narrative reinforces everything they already believe, that the system is rigged, the FBI is compromised, and Trump is being targeted for challenging the establishment. On the other side, Trump's critics argue that no individual, regardless of status or popularity, should be above the law. They point to years of